What up, guys? Welcome back to another video. This is Pedro DoorDash Santiago. Don't forget, vote for Pedro. Today's video is going to be talking about a little brief, we could make this into a mini series, right? We're going to do a brief history on tipping in America, where it originated, why I think it's important, and how it's really affecting the gig economy in 2021. Because tipping's been around for centuries, guys. And it's been around in America for a couple hundred years, a few hundred years, okay? But tipping obviously is very, very different when it originated to what we look at it now, and especially for you and I doing food delivery, because food delivery and the way that we do it is still very, very, very new in the grand scheme of things. Let's get into it. As always, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe if you're not subscribed. I do gig work in the St. Louis market. This channel is about showing you guys how to do that, how to find hidden tips, giving you tips, tricks, giving you the real, and then we talk about betting on you, setting goals one day at a time. But if you're an OG, you know that. If you're new, that's what this channel's about. So let's get into some of the stuff I knew already, and a lot of it I didn't. So a lot of it you guys are gonna know, and a lot of it might be new to you, okay? So tipping, okay? If you do, I'm gonna put split screens of things here, okay? If you do a little bit of research on your own, Google, Wikipedia, whatever, you can find a lot of this, okay? I've worked in the restaurant industry for 18 years before I started doing food delivery and gig work and working on my own business. So I've been a tipped employee on a service level. I've managed people that have done it. I've seen the ins and outs. I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. I've had waitresses and waiters in my office crying because they worked 6 hours and made 20 bucks and it wasn't any fault of theirs. I've seen people ring up hundreds of dollars worth of food and not tip the server, and there were no issues. The tipping culture in America is a hot button issue. A lot of people think, why should I tip you? It's your employer's job to do that, right? A lot of people think, why should I tip my driver? You haven't even done anything for me yet. I don't know if the food's going to be good, or, and they don't understand what we make per hour, what our base pay is, right? They think maybe we're employed and we make 20 bucks an hour from the company that they're ordering from. It's a lot of misinformation, and that's where a lot of this starts from. Now, tipping. As you can see in this split screen here, it didn't start in America, okay? We have made it into really what it is now in today's world. But it started, the practice of tipping began in England. By the 17th century, it was expected that overnight guests to private homes would provide sums of money, known as vails, to the host servants. Soon afterwards, customers began tipping in London coffee houses, hence how it went into the food industry and other commercial establishments. So back in the day, there would be people that would need a place to stay for the night, and people would open their homes and you would give them some shillings or rubies or money or pounds or whatever it is in that time frame as a nice gesture. For me, tipping is a gratitude thing. You're doing something for me out of the kindness of your heart, and I'm going to tip you to accommodate you. That's how I look at it. I've always been a tipper. If I get really good service, I'll tip really, really good. If I get bad service, I still usually tip. It's a thing for me. It is what it is. We're going to get into that, the psychology of tipping in a little bit. So that's kind of the brief, the history of like where tipping kind of began. Okay. And then it came into America, okay, some years later. And the history of America and tipping and how it started, I didn't know. I learned a lot today, and it kind of opened my eyes to some things. Let's get into that next. So a lot of other people, as you see here, it was a result of a caste system in Europe in the late Middle Ages. But in the United States, fresh out of the Civil War, formerly enslaved people were able to find most work in food service, okay? Or as railroad porters, jobs that relied on tips. So with the 15th Amendment, okay? Is it the 15th? It should be the 15th. When enslaved people were able to not be slaves and then get work on their own, okay? A lot of people still took advantage of these people by hiring them, paying them no money, $0. Hey, work in my bar. I'm not going to pay anything, and I'm going to tell the customer to tip you, and that's how I'm still going to have control over you in some ways. There's a rich history there. That's one screenshot. There's others you'll see. But that, you know, and in a lot of these jobs, legislation had to come years and years and years later to say, no, we need a federal minimum wage for people that are tipped. And then it started at $2.13, and right now in some cities it's as high as $6 or $7. In St. Louis, I think it's like $4 and some change. And then you can get tips off that. But the history of tipping in America doesn't have a great beginning. Let's dissect even more. So, as you see here, at least 2 accounts state that there was no tipping in the United States prior to 1840. This came from over the pond, guys. So, Carrie Segree writes in The Tipping and American Social History of Gratitudes, wealthy Americans are thought to have brought tipping back to the United States from lavish trips to Europe in the years leading up to the Civil War. So people that had money going to Europe, maybe seeing some old family or whatever, coming back to the States. At that point, it's not easy to travel, guys. You gotta be wealthy, come from wealth, not rich, but come from wealth to be able to travel back then. They learned this tipping culture. It made them feel good and important and better than the people they were tipping. Follow me? So they would tip, and they brought that back to the States. They'd go to places, look how fancy I am. I'm tipping. I'm going to tip you. It was a class system even when it came here. Now, that's not to say everybody thought of it and treated it like that, but I think most people did, okay? And some people that were just kind would, oh, tipping, okay, yeah, you know what? That kind of makes sense. Let me do that. But also there's a psychology behind it. It makes you feel good when you tip. Some people that tip, they get a rush from that. We'll get into that later. But, you know, the history of tipping in the United States is the way it started wasn't necessarily great. As you can see in this next slide here, okay, so in many of the articles that I read and some of the research I did, okay, as you see here, based on our research, the claim that tipping became popularized by restaurant owners who didn't want to pay black workers after the passage of the 15th Amendment is generally true, though more context is helpful. There's a lot. I want you guys to, in the comments below, tell me your opinion, but also do your own research. Tipping in America began before the Civil War, but afterwards it is true that employers in the restaurant industry, railroads, and more used the practice of tipping as a way to keep some wages low. Formerly enslaved black people were in many of those jobs. So this has been going, and this isn't news to anybody. The people that have money don't want to pay the people that don't have it. They want to keep a certain kind of person in a lower bracket, and then, you know, we can make money doing it, but we're never going to, you know, employers, whether it's DoorDash, let's relate this to gig work now. They want to pay us as little as possible, and they want to put that cost onto the consumer. That's just what they want to do. They want to save all the money that they can. And that's why I'm always for the little guy and I'm not for these big greedy corporations. But these corporations have been around forever. So the place, the tavern that was in 1865, okay, they didn't pay their people. The people that went in there paid them. So it's free labor. And then legislation had to be signed, and tip credits came in 1966, as you can see kind of here, saying, hey, you know, as an employer, if your person's claiming they didn't make enough, you need to make up the difference. So this kind of class system of employment has been around forever, guys. Okay, it's been around forever. And we can go back even thousands of years when people were having to do things and making nothing and then just getting a bed to sleep in. And this is happening all over the world, but let's stick to America. Also, next topic. Also, before we get into things, I'm going to put it here. These are some links, reference checks, links, I don't know what you call them, but you could look at this stuff. I'm going to put it here. This isn't just me and my opinion. This is research that's been done, books that have been written, articles, things like that. Now, I'm going to share my opinion on some things, but this isn't me just pulling it out of nowhere. So you can see that there. But also, I want us to talk about, there's a lot of parts of the world where tipping is not, it's considered rude. Japan's one of them, okay? And in a lot of Asian culture, tipping is considered rude, okay? So the Japanese believe that you are already paying for good service, so there is no need to pay extra. Some may even view a tip as a crass gesture. So do abide by this good rule of thumb in Japan. No matter how odd it may seem to you, do not tip. I didn't know that, okay? But there are many parts of the world where tipping is not a thing. So for my restaurant people out there, right? You go to restaurants and you would have people that you call them foreigners, or you call them, you know, people that aren't from the States. And a lot of restaurant people don't like waiting on those tables. Trust me, I've been there, I've seen staff, and I've had to say, hey, hold on, no, we got to wait on every table, you got to take that table, can't pick and choose or play that manager card, right? But there are a lot of parts of the world where tipping isn't a thing. In America, we have a lot of cultures here. So when people are ordering on DoorDash and they're not from this country necessarily, some of those orders, they don't have tips. That's part of the reason. I think it's a small percentage, but that's part of it, guys. That's part of it. It's a rude thing for some people, right? They just don't understand. And that's why knowledge is power. That's why I do these videos. And maybe somebody sees it and says, okay, so in America, it's kind of polite. In my country, it isn't, but I'm here, so maybe I should change that a little bit, right? So just food for thought. Let's move on. So another opinion of mine why we don't see tips sometimes on DoorDash, okay, and food delivery is right now we can get anything delivered to our house. Anything. I can get, it's 9:30, I can get any kind of food for the most part that's open delivered. I can get beer delivered. I can get my prescriptions delivered. I can, a multitude of things, guys. I can get anything delivered, okay? But with the evolution of Amazon and a lot of other companies, when people order something from Amazon, you're not tipping that driver. So a lot of people look at it like, okay, well, I don't tip that guy, but I got to tip this guy. And yeah, some of you are going to say, well, on the DoorDash app, it does suggest a tip. So the ones that don't tip, they got to back it out, which is crazy. And I've shown you guys that. But some people think that when they get McDonald's, that over-counter kind of service, I'll put that right here, right? The mindset of over-counter, fast service. I never tipped the McDonald's person. Maybe they think we work at McDonald's. Who knows, right? They're just not tipping for that. They're not used to it. They see the delivery fee, the service fee, the St. Louis regulatory fee. They see the hiked prices on the menu. That chicken sandwich, when I go there, it's $5, but now on the menu, it's $5.99. Then there's a $3.99 delivery fee, a $1.99 service fee, a $1 regulatory fee. That chicken sandwich costs $12. Now I got a tip. So that's a big part of it too. I think a big percentage of people are just like, I'm not tipping for McDonald's. I'm not tipping for my Wingstop. I'm not tipping for my Little Caesars, right? It's not most people, but it's a big percentage. Another reason why we just don't see it. And DoorDash is not going to up the base pay on enough of those. They will sometimes, but there's still a lot of people that are going to take them, and DoorDash is just going to play that game. They don't want to pay us, guys. It's like we're an 18-something. They want to pay us as little as possible, and all that costs, they want to go to the customer. I don't have a huge deal with that because it's a luxury service. I think customers should tip. But this is about the why. Let's think about the why we think some people don't. So like many of us know, tip is kind of it stands for something. To ensure promptness, okay? That's the acronym, I think, as they call it, right? To ensure promptness. And when you're out and you're dining at an establishment and you become like somebody that they see often and you tip, you get better service. Trust me, you do. And when you're somebody that goes there a few times and you don't tip, or you tip poorly, your service level is going to go down. Believe me. So tipping is important, especially in restaurants. You're going to get better service if you tip better. It is what it is, okay? My question to you is, what do you tip? Where do you tip? Put it in the comments right now. The general standard is 10 to 20%. 10% if it's okay service, bad to okay. 15 is like the average, at least it has for most people. I think we'll say 15, but put it below. 20 is for good service. Recently, in the last few years with pandemic and things, you're seeing people tipping 25, 30%. There are some people that tip 50, 100%, depending on the bill, right? But do you tip on percentage? Do you tip on dollar amount? Or do you strictly tip on service? You go somewhere, you're giving a person $5 regardless, because it doesn't matter if I eat $200 worth of food or $100 or $20 worth of food, the amount of work they're doing is the same. There's some truth to that. And as delivery drivers, I want to challenge you guys on one thing real quick. When we pick up an order and it's $150, we didn't make the food. We didn't bag the food. We picked it up. So we expect more to get a bigger tip because the subtotal's higher. I know I do. I'll speak for myself. I know I do. But are we doing more work than the $20 McDonald's order that tips us $4? But we expect the other order to have a $20 tip? Why do we do that? That's the argument for a lot of people. Well, why do I got to tip more just because my bill's more? Where did that come from? What do you guys think? Put it in the comments below. I would challenge, I'm going to say something unpopular maybe to some of you guys. That $20 McDonald's order that maybe tips me $3 or $4, I usually have to spend more time on that order. If the miles are equal, I usually spend more time on that order than the Outback Steakhouse or Cheesecake Factory, or that when I get there, usually it's ready in my market. And maybe it's one more bag, but that's not any extra work. I should get paid more for that? In the comments below, what do you guys think about that? Let's move on. So let's get into some hard facts and some numbers. But this first thing is, if you just do a quick Google search of if you don't tip on DoorDash, your order will make the rounds to various dashers until someone accepts. We know that, right? And sometimes the base pay goes up, sometimes it doesn't. In my market, the base pay is $4. So if you don't tip, the dasher offer screen will be $4, right? Mine's $2.25 to $3 right now. The tip percentage goes down when the order total gets bigger. You guys hear that? The tip percentage goes down when the order total gets bigger. Odd. But a lot of customers don't know how the Dash app works. And I'll keep saying that. Most do, but a lot don't. And if you look at your acceptance rate, the average acceptance rate, who knows what it is? Put what's your acceptance rate? Put that down below too. I want to get to know what your guys' numbers are. Mine right now is 38%. It's got as low as 0, right? I fluctuate between there. I'm gonna venture to say a lot of you guys that are watching this are educated, and if you're new, you know, yours might be higher. But most of ours is going to be between 10 and 30%. It's going to be between 10 and 30. So that means 10 to 30 orders are probably either long miles or there's no tip. But that also tells me still a decent amount, a high percentage of people still tip. I believe that. It's just we're built this way to only think about and remember the bad experiences, the ones that don't tip, right? And even if you tip $5, if it's going 10 miles, we still don't take that. That's where the base pay should come in. That's where DoorDash comes in, Grubhub, Uber Eats, right? Not the customer's fault if I tip $5. They're not thinking about miles and proximity, guys. Let's not kid ourselves. We think about that maybe if we order, the average Joe Schmo ordering that pizza doesn't care how many miles the restaurant is. They're able to look at the app, and if it says they can order it, they're going to order it. And if they leave a $5 tip for a $20 pie, it's not a bad tip, guys. But it's about knowledge is power, and we got to get as much of this information out to the customers so they're informed. So maybe the next time the guy's like, man, my pizza took an hour, maybe he'll tip $10, and next time it'll only take 30 minutes. So I'm going to put a couple split screens of some numbers and raw research. First, another question. Put it in the comments below, okay? What kind of customer do you think doesn't tip, and what kind of customer do you think does tip? Based on prejudices and stereotypes, put it in the comments below. Be respectful, because I'm going to put some screenshots up. But first, best states and worst states to tip, as you can see right here. Some of the best states to tip: New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Colorado. So the first 4 is all East Coast. You got Colorado, Connecticut, East Coast, Indiana, Florida, Arizona, Ohio. Those are the best states. Some of the worst states, sorry if you're in here: Idaho, Minnesota, North Dakota, Utah, South Dakota, Arkansas, Kentucky, Washington, Alabama, Kansas, all over the place. A lot of the best states are kind of on the East Coast, it looks like, and Florida down below. And some of the worst states are a little more south and Midwest, right? What do you guys think about that? Are you surprised by these best and worst? Are you not surprised? Also, what demographic do you think tips better? What age? Man, woman? Comment below your thoughts, okay? Right now, I can tell you this. Sorry, ladies. Men, historically, by stats, are better tippers. I was surprised to read that, actually. Some of you might say, well, maybe because men pay more sometimes when you're on a date, or maybe the men's are paying, times are changing, but I think that's still overall true. If you're going on a date, taking the family out, most of the time dad or the husband or the boyfriend's paying. I would think that's probably more than 50%, okay? But as you can see here, the best tippers in restaurants are men. Republicans, Northeasterners, and baby boomers, who leave around 20% when they dine out. The worst tippers in restaurants are women. I was surprised by that. Southerners, surprised by that. And Democrats, a little surprised by that. So I was surprised by some of that, okay? The median tip for women is 16%. Democrats give about 15 in tips. So a Republican man from New York is the best tipper. I was surprised by that. I'm not going to lie. But numbers don't lie, I guess. Still, in a restaurant setting, 59% of men would leave a tip over 15% against 47% of women. Interesting. However, it is a different story at a salon where 79% of women would leave a tip compared with 74% of men. Well, that makes sense. I think more women are spending time at salons and things like that for personal care than men, right? Some men do, but more generally speaking, I think women do, right? So this was surprising. Millennials tip the least, around 1 in 6. I was surprised to see that at first because millennials, where I deliver to a lot of millennials, and they tip pretty well in my St. Louis market, in my demographic of where, you know. So I was surprised by that. But then also, I had to think about it. You know what? Millennials are wired a little different. There's a money aspect where, you know, disposable income, so that makes sense. But then also there are restaurants, and you can look this up, that are going in the West Coast that are going to not putting in more of a fixed cost, but telling the patrons, we don't tip here. You don't have to tip. We pay our staff a fair wage. They pay them $15 to $20 an hour, and the staff likes that because it's a guaranteed amount. There's no pressure. I don't know how I feel about that necessarily, because I think then what kind of service can you get? But because I feel if I'm a server, I want to make my own. If I'm good, I want to make my own way. I feel like I'm worth more than 20%, right? When I served, that's how I felt, and I gave people really good service and had a lot of regulars. But millennials, not good tippers. But, so millennials, I'm going to read this to you and show you. Millennials tip the least, around 1 in 6. We talked about, not that millennials are cheap, but 27% of them prefer doing away with tips and charging them with a service charge included in food prices. I want you to think about that. A lot of our customers on DoorDash, guys, the app on DoorDash, they're millennials. A lot of them. I see them. I drop it off. You drop it off. They rather just pay a service fee because they expect the employer to pay us more. But they don't. They might not know that. And they'd rather be charged service fees, and they're already being charged service fees. I also think that's why we're not seeing some tips on a large amount of orders. Okay, let's go on. Likewise, 30% of college degree holders share the no tip sentiment. Okay, credit or debit card payers tip at 5% more than cash payers at 20% and 15% respectively. That doesn't surprise me. Let's get into race real quick. Okay, and these are just numbers. This isn't, all the time. But whites in general are the best tippers by race, with 94% saying they tip waiters all the time. Only 82% of Hispanics, that's me, and 78% of blacks say so. So, whites are also twice likely to tip above 15% than other ethnic groups. Interesting. Now, earlier when I asked you what kind of demographic do you think doesn't tip, is that what you thought? I will tell you this. Think about, for you servers out there, right? There is a belief that people of a certain age, color, or sex don't tip. Now, do these numbers add up to what you think? Put it in the comments below. All right, so tipping in America. We learned a little bit today. I know I learned a little bit. Maybe you guys knew this already. But how does it relate to food delivery? Because that's what we're doing. How does it relate, and what can we do? Like I've always said, I think the companies need to up the base pay a little bit. DoorDash specifically, because Grubhub's is better. But my number one thing, and I've been saying this for a long time, transparency starts with the customer. If they're transparent with the customer on like what we make, and we're driving our cars and gas prices are up and all that kind of stuff. And Domino's has been doing this for a while. The next time you order a pizza from Domino's or go pick it up, look at that box that the pizza comes in. There's an extreme amount of transparency on drivers and what they carry and what they make, and the delivery fee doesn't go to the driver. Please tip your driver. Gas prices are high. Tip your driver. Transparency, transparency, transparency. I know we want it. In my humble and slightly ignorant opinion, I think it starts with the customer. Them getting that information and knowing. Now, some of them are going to know it and they don't care. The people that don't tip, you're not going to get them to tip. I've worked in the industry a long time. There are times where customers just don't think they want to tip, and the bill comes and it's $100 and they get that car sticker shock. Oh my God, I just ate and yeah, the food was good, but it wasn't that good. $100. What's this gratuity word? What is this? 18%? And they start arguing. $18? I'm not paying $18 and all this stuff, right? The people that don't tip won't tip. But the ones that are on the fence and just are uninformed, that's the people we need to give us that $5 so we can make a little more and make it worth our time and effort. This video was a little longer than I wanted it to be. If you hung around to the end, thank you very much. I hope you learned something. I learned some things. I want the comment section bumping. I want to get you guys' input. What do you think about what we learned today? The things I said, my opinion on it. I think tips should be, you can't say they should be mandatory, because what'll happen with that, I know some of you believe customers should have to tip automatically or they don't get the food. DoorDash and Uber and Grubhub will never do that because they're not going to get as much revenue. And if they can't exist, we can't exist to a certain degree, okay? Now, I do think that if they, it should be more like just in there and a customer, it should make it harder for them to be able to change it, or, tipping afterwards. They shouldn't be able to take away a tip in the delivery like Uber. I think that's crap. I think the customer has an issue. You got to call the restaurant, or call, if the DoorDash, if the Uber guy was that bad, call Uber support and maybe get a credit. The tip should stand. A customer shouldn't be able to take away a tip for somebody driving in their car. You know what I'm saying? That's ridiculous. But it starts with transparency. That's what I believe. I'm going to keep saying that, okay? These companies, though, guys, they don't want to pay us. We got to adapt and continue to adapt and strategize and realize it's not going to get any better. The base pay is not going to go up with DoorDash. It's just going to continue to go down until we maybe get legislation. And as we learned today, they've had to do that multiple times in this country for us, the little guy, the small guy, to be heard. And I think that's the path I like to choose, okay? And some of you might disagree or agree with that. Put it in the comments below. Do you want legislation to be involved? Do you want the government to be involved? I think sometimes it's okay, because we need to be treated fairly. And the history of this country tells us not all of us are always treated like that, okay? That's videos for another day, though. You guys are fantastic. I hope you learned something. I know I did. I think I've said that 4 times already. Bet on you, Seckles, one day at a time. Share this video with somebody that you think doesn't tip. See if it'll change their mind. Deuces.